they are continually posting about China. They've been doing it all year, about the atrocities in China and how
the Uyghurs.
Yeah. Welcome to Reformgelical, finally back after what feels like weeks. Well, it has been weeks. And we're back on the right time, Thursday. I think last time we did this, it was Wednesday.
That's right.
So it's good to see everyone. Did I say Reformgelical? I don't know. I'm also so rusty on my intros. Co-hosted by the great A.D. Robles. A.D., how you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm exhausted. I've been following and keeping track of all of the hearings and the evidence and the videos, and they've been going on all day for the last couple of days, and I've just been drained watching those. Have you been following any of that stuff?
No, I haven't been following that stuff. I don't like the theater of politics. You know that.
I do know that. So let me ask you this then. What percentage likelihood do you think that... Which way should I go with this? Okay. How confident are you that Joe Biden's the president of the United States?
Well, it all depends on what you mean. I'm not confident at all. In fact, I'm 100% against the fact that he was legally elected president of the United States.
Do you think he's going to be sworn in?
Yes, I'm starting to think he might be. So I'm 50-50, which is very much different than where I was a week ago, where I was pretty sure that Trump would be sworn in. At this point, I'm at 50-50. I've gone downhill.
That's interesting. And I think you're probably even more accepting of the not accepting of the narrative. So probably most people think that he's going to be sworn in.
That Biden is. Yeah,
Biden's going to be sworn in. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I think most people do think that. And for me, I think that I'm at the same place where I was before. I just don't think any judge is going to want to put their name on that.
Yeah.
Because the narrative is you're overturning the election. Obviously, that's not really what's happening, but that's what's going to be said.
Yeah. Yeah, man. And I'm telling you, if that does happen, I'm going to have to apologize to you again for making fun of you having chickens, because I am desperately coveting your chickens right now. It could be nice to have that little source of protein going on in case the world ends. But
listen, no despair, baby, no despair.
No despair. I was looking because we're starting to prepare, just having like a month's supply, just because of how many different things could possibly happen.
Absolutely.
And I was thinking, man, this rice would be really good with maybe some eggs for some protein or something. I wish we would have got some chickens like AD did. So I'm just going to be eating rice all by itself.
Well, the thing about chickens is that they supposedly will slow down in production during the winter. So if things get really bad, I'll just have to start offing them,
Yeah. I mean, well, then you got a good chicken meal.
That's right.
Is it 1 egg per day? Pretty much. Is that the ratio?
Pretty much. Yeah. So I thought they were slowing down because I've heard this. I've researched that they slow down in the winter. And there was one day like last week, they only gave you 4. But the last 6-7 days has been either 8 or 9 every day. And I've got 10. So
nice. What more do you want?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I eat like 6 eggs at a time, and I still can't. I always have more than 40 eggs on hand.
That's fantastic. So I am desperate for that, because I think I am 90% confident, AD, that Donald Trump is going to be president.
90%.
90% confident.
Wow.
I've been following everything that's happened.
Yeah.
I mean, reading the lawsuits that have been filed.
Yeah.
Watching the legislative hearings, because there's more tracks than just the Supreme Court. And I'm learning this as I go, because I never knew any of this stuff. But the legislatures apparently can take back the vote, the electoral votes from the voters, and as the representatives of the state, vote for them themselves. And in the last couple of days, including today, I don't know if you saw the video going around Twitter.
No.
They caught on video the Atlanta operation kicking everyone out but 4 people and counting votes for 2 hours by themselves, all on video.
Like, listen. Can I just say something? Because I have not been watching this at all, right? And so, and in all fairness, just so everyone out here in our live land knows, I am on a group where Matt does comment on the group very often. I don't participate very much, but I do see your content and what you're saying about so I know a little bit about what's been presented. So all that to say is I'm not like coming at this dark. I don't want anyone to think I'm a prophet or something. But from what it's a very circumstantial case, but there's nothing wrong with a circumstantial case, especially when it's like all of the circumstances are in one side of it, right? It seems to me like it's very circumstantial, and I know people will be like, well, that's not proof. Well, but it is though, because you're actually breaking the law often when you do stuff like that. So it's like, it's not just that you hit, you counted the votes all on your own and oopsie, but it's like, that's actually against the law too. And the reason why it's against the law is because you can do shady stuff and nobody would ever know. And so obviously, like if anyone at this point who's like, no shady stuff happened, you just write them off as a truth teller completely. They need the gospel. That'd be like you can't trust anything. They're obviously just saying what they want to be true. There's so much circumstantial evidence, even on election night itself. I haven't been following this too closely after election night, but even on election night itself, it's just insane what happened. Insane. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
Absolutely. No, not at all. So there's 3 tracks apparently of what can make this go Trump's way. And I think 2 of the 3 of them are pretty compelling. One is that the Pennsylvania legislature the Pennsylvania lawsuit's going up to the Supreme Court, and 4 of them yesterday decided to hear the case. So it's going to go to the Supreme Court. And I think that one has a pretty good chance of flipping Pennsylvania. Today, there's that video in Georgia where it was not only the fraud, but there's 2 different things, 2 different reasons why the legislatures would have constitutional authority to take back the legislatures. Is one for the fraud itself, like what we're talking about.
Sure, right.
But also when the statutes that were set by the legislature wasn't followed. For example, in Georgia, the Secretary of State and the Secretary of State's attorney made a deal with the Democrats about how they're going to accept ballots without certain authentication with IDs and things like that. But it went against the code. So another argument that constitutionally that they were arguing today is that not just the fraud, but that they were following executive orders that contradicted the legislator. And so that by itself, forgetting the fraud, could throw that state to Donald Trump. So there's 3 different tracks that are happening.
Let me just make sure I'm following here, Matt, because what you're saying is the legislature set rules, which is what their job is. They're the ones that make the laws. They weren't followed because of an executive order. And so then you're saying that that's a track where it makes sense for the legislature to say, right, this is why we're going to take it back because we set these rules up. You decided to ignore them. And so we're going to do what we have to do.
Yeah, you didn't follow the law as the executive branch.
Right.
You don't have the authority to establish the electors. We do by the Constitution. So since you didn't follow the law, we're going to choose the electors ourselves. Yeah. It's crazy.
It would make sense. It would make sense because that's why we have the division of powers, because, we have a group of men and it's supposed to be a group because just for the very fact that you can't just by fiat say we're doing something else. It's a group of people. So hopefully, hopefully someone will stand up and be like, no, we're not doing that.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like that's the whole reason why you have a group. But anyway, the point being is that's why we have it. So you can't just have one corrupt person, or even if they're not corrupt and they're just stupid, do something stupid and mess the whole system up.
Right. Yeah. And so it'll be interesting. I mean, I still think there's a chance it's not going to happen because there's a bunch of cowards.
Of course. Yeah.
Seriously, again, I watched these hearings. They were like 10, 11 hours long of just evidence of people coming, testifying, eyewitness stuff. There's a colonel in the Army that's using the big data analysis of these were the irregularities. This is where they loaded more votes into the system than the machines could possibly count in that same time frame. Breaking it down, like all this crazy stuff. So either they're going to do what's right or they're going to become irrelevant and they're never going to be voted in office ever again. But I mean, that is possible. I just find it so hard that they are not going to be able to act on it from all the evidence that came out.
Yeah, I'm kind of here with Christopher Thrower here. So Christopher said this: I'm 95% sure the election was stolen. I would say 100%. That's me. He says, but I can't say I'm anywhere near that sure that it'll be unstolen. I'm with AD. I probably 40% that Trump finds a way. I just don't have the faith in the state legislators and swing states to do the right thing. That's a good point, because the idea is that these are swing states, and so even a courageous elector or a legislature wants to be reelected again, and so they're going to do the thing that gets them reelected again. It just out of self-interest, which makes sense in some way. They shouldn't be doing that, but they're gonna. So yeah, and he goes, I don't even really have faith in the SCOTUS to do the right thing. I think we're pretty far gone. Yeah, I agree. I just don't see listen. It would be a great story for like Amy Coney Barrett to be the deciding vote again. But the thing is, the story is that they'd be overturning the will of the people. Mm-hmm. And it's a very powerful story. And I don't know if they'd be willing to do that. I mean, hopefully they would be. And especially Amy Coney Barrett, and then the most recent one that got treated so shamefully, they would be like, yeah, we're not going to go with the story because we know where that, yeah, exactly, Kavanaugh. Mm-hmm. Like, we know how that story goes. Like, they lied about us the entire time.
You're right.
So hopefully that would be, but I just don't know. It's just very hard to say. I'm 50-50 right now. It's very
hard to say, but I'll say, like, so the Supreme Court did get four people to hear the case in Pennsylvania, which everyone, when the Third Circuit, the 3 judges 3-0 voted it down, dismissed it without any evidence. They didn't submit evidence or anything. And then everyone's like, oh, it's over. It's going to be impossible for the Supreme Court. Yeah.
I remember that, yeah.
So apparently they are going to hear it. I haven't heard the exact confirmation of it, but I did hear through the Twitter sphere that 4 of the justices agreed to hear it. So apparently it's going to go to Supreme Court. And then in Nevada right now, there is hard evidence where they have the people voting in 2 different states. Like, they have the names, addresses, like the physical people. It's not just abstract numbers. They have the dead people. They have the Indian reservation raffle. And that overturns Nevada. And so they only need one more.
I'm so out of the loop here. Indian reservation raffle.
Yeah, it's so great. There's a video of it. I shared it on my Twitter. They were promoting it. They were saying, if you come down and vote, you can win a $250 gift card, which it's illegal. It's a felony. So they have this stuff on video. That's what I'm saying. It's so blatant. So blatant. I don't know, even with people that are cowards and don't have spines, I don't know how you don't do something. And it's in all 6 states. He only needs 3. So we only need 3, 50% of the people to have spines and do what's right. Is that too much to ask in this country?
I mean, it might be.
It might be. And, this brings up another good point. I was talking with someone from my past, and she was saying that it's a shame that the people are fighting harder than the people that were elected to represent them. Like, why is it that the people are fighting harder? And I just want to drive this point home. I shared it with her, but I think it's important for all of us to remember is if we would have been fighting like this all along, we would have had politicians that would have been fighting as much as us. But because we haven't been, we got lackadaisical, we got complacent and kind of spoiled with our freedom and our citizenship, that we just let things go and didn't pay attention. I didn't know about these different legislative options. I wasn't calling legislatures like I am now. I'm not calling governors of another states and telling them what's up. So
yeah, you're right. It's not just the others. Yeah, it's with all of us, right?
It's with all of us.
Yeah.
And the reason we have what we have today is because we haven't been fighting like this all along.
That's right.
So if we continue to fight like this going forward, then we're going to get the politicians that are going to fight with us. So we got to keep it up. It's basically
2 things. First, I'm just going to say, Michaela here says she doesn't think it's the will of the people because she believes most people voted for Trump. I agree. I'm just saying that the story is that they'd be overturning the will of the people. I completely agree with you. I think that's complete fantasy, but that's what the story is that's being given to us by mainstream media. Matt, what was the deal with that blonde lady? She was kind of like ditzy, and
ditzy?
She kind of seemed to she talked like she was ditzy, but like she totally ripped one of the legislators, where she said, if I'm lying, then I go to jail. But did you?
The Detroit chick.
That was totally awesome. Was she legit or what? Because it seemed like too perfect. Because she sounded kind of like a ditz a little bit, but what she was saying was amazing.
Yeah, to me, she sounded like she came from the 8 Mile movie. Honestly, I didn't really think ditzy. Yeah, total Detroit, right?
Yeah. No, maybe ditzy's not the right word, but she didn't
sassy.
Seem like
that's what I called her.
Sassy, right? That's actually a better word. Like, she didn't seem like she was totally educated, or like she didn't speak that way. But like what she said was amazing. Like the content of it was like a complete zinger. Yeah. You know what I mean? Excellent.
Right. Excellent. So she was a temp employee
Okay.
who was hired as a Dominion contractor.
Okay.
She testified in both hearings. There was 2 hearings in Michigan. And she has a sworn affidavit. So that's what she's referencing. That it's just like you swear under oath in court.
Yep.
So she said the same story twice, has this in the affidavit, everything that she saw.
Yeah.
And she was just taking no crap from anybody. And
Nothing.
the reason
it was amazing.
Is her life is destroyed. She can't find a job. She had to change her phone number. She had to get rid of social media, she said. And so when these Democrats were coming at her, I mean, she's Detroit, and apparently, like, Detroit's a pretty tough city, right?
Yeah.
So she just wasn't having the civility part of it at all.
That was amazing. I was very impressed because, like I said, the rapper, the outside, if you were judging from the outside, and also in the way that she talked, like her accent, you'd be like, oh, that's a moron. But then, like, what she was saying was like no holds barred, like complete truth. It was awesome. Mm-hmm. That's why I was asking you if she was legit, because she seemed like too perfect. Like, almost like in the movie Legally Blonde, where you're not expecting anything from her, but then she like says something amazing.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I think she was actually pretty intelligent.
She seemed it.
And I think she was telling the truth because she never stuttered. Like she was completely confident. And if you're lying, you're not that confident and you're not that assertive.
Right.
Even if that's your personality, you're still not going to be leaning in like that.
Yeah. No, I agree.
With the story. And then she was able, and this was the other thing that I thought was telling about her story, is she was able to explain how the machines worked and what was happening in a very simple way. So she was taking the complex issues of how the machines run and kind of communicate it. Yeah. So to me, what
I loved about her was that, because the thing is, there's like this air of mystique about politicians and about like academics and stuff like that, where they dazzle you with theater. That's what I hate. That I hate watching politics because it's just theater, and they dazzle you with theater, but there's no substance to it. And what was great about her was that I didn't watch the whole testimony, but I saw a few minutes of it, and she just cuts through the nonsense so easily. Like that one guy, that pencil neck guy, was like trying to dazzle her, and I'm sure that he's very used to being able to dazzle people. I am a state senator after all, whatever it was, and it's like. And she was just like, no, it's complete. I'm not dealing with the BS. It's just I'm not even going to deal with it. Here's the deal. I signed an affidavit. You didn't. So you could lie all day. Nothing happens to you. If I lie, I go to jail.
Right. Yep. Exactly right. And what also I loved about it is the other Democrat that was on the panel, which I loved having the Democrats on the panel. In Arizona, they didn't have Democrats. Yeah. So there was no pushback, which made it kind of seem like just one side and maybe not
more
so
theatery. Yeah.
It was still good, but so one of the lady, and she was like total lesbian, butch hair, had this shawl that was rainbow and stuff. Sure. And she's like, why aren't more people coming forward if your story is true? And then she literally said, it's because Democrats destroy people's lives.
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah. And then she went through of like all the things that she's had to do. She's like, I can't get a job now. No one will hire me. All of this stuff.
Yeah,
it makes sense. And she like cuts through the crap. Like a Republican that was in the country clubs would never just come out and say it's because Democrats want to destroy your lives. But we all know that's true.
And this is what these losers in Big Eva want, though. They want a Republican that'll play the game and the decorum. And we've got to make sure that we're respectable. Like that lady, that blonde lady that I saw, like that's the opposite of what Big Eva wants. They want you to play the game. They want you to beat around the bush like a little wet wuss. Like they want you to talk like in such a nice, lovely way. But that's not what this time needs. Right. What we need are people that are just going to be like the kid that said the emperor had no clothes. That's what I liked about that lady. She was like the kid that said the emperor had no clothes. It's just like, I'm not impressed by whatever you are at all. I'm not scared. You do whatever you want to do to me. You know what I mean? Like, here's the truth. That was impressive.
That was impressive for everyone. I see people asking, what are we talking about? We're talking about the Michigan. And see, so no one knows about this. No one has heard about this.
Well, no, none of the main. Listen, I knew it was happening because of you. Because, like I said, I'm in a group where we're all talking. So I knew it was happening for you. But the thing is, like, on all the trending bars and in normal interactions that I do every day, I didn't hear about it at all.
Yeah,
nothing. Nothing.
And it's even so funny. This was what was able to be able to happen because of this. is during the Arizona hearing that was happening, where they were laying out all this evidence, Arizona certified their election, saying that there was no fraud as the fraud hearing was happening. Right. And they were able to do that because no one covered it. But so if you guys want to see any of these, if you go to Right Side Broadcasting on YouTube, it's a YouTube channel. I think they're even Christians, but basically they cover all the rallies for Trump. They've covered all of these legislative hearings. They've covered even the case today in court for Nevada, and they just don't cut away from it. So you don't have to worry about, CNN at the last thing. Oh, you don't need to hear about this or whatever. So Right Side Broadcasting, that's the YouTube channel. I'm not affiliated in any way, but that's where I listen to everything and don't get it cut off. I highly recommend the Michigan one that we're talking about, especially the second session.
Yep.
And then the Georgia one today, the second session. The first one was weak sauce. Second one was fantastic.
Well, I don't know, man. I mean, listen, I feel like, I'm still in the same place. I was much more confident last week than I am this week. But maybe that's just a function of time, right? So it's like more time passes, and like I realize there's less time to do anything. So maybe that's what it is, because I don't really think, because I haven't really been paying attention, so I don't really think I've been influenced by anything,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just just the nature of what is it? The second law of thermodynamics, entropy.
Sure.
It just naturally kind of burns out, and
sure, yeah. Almost like you just accept your fate.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
But because of this. Because there is a group of people like my crazy self who's been paying attention to all this stuff, like we're not going to be able to accept this. If the Joe Biden election or the certification happens and the inauguration happens, we're not going to be able to accept this. And I think there's going to be a lot of hard times coming in the future. I know personally, I'm going to be lobbying for Florida to secede if Biden does end up winning, which is going to throw some tailspins. And I know other states are going to try to do that as well. And then on the flip side, though. I know it's totally racist.
It's totally racist.
That's the other thing that I loved about these hearings is a lot of them, not a majority of them, but I would say probably like 40% were minorities.
Yeah.
Ethnic minorities, where the GOP white rich male kind of totally got blown out of the water.
Yeah.
It was fantastic. But the other thing is what happens when one of these state legislatures do have the balls to do this, and the first state turns, and then the media has to report it? But nobody has even been thinking this was a possibility. The Biden signs have been put into the trash because they thought they won. And then all of a sudden, this one state's going to not give the electors to Joe Biden that they thought won it. Antifa's going to go nuts.
Yeah, no, it's no question about it. There's hard times either way. You're right, because once one state does this, it's going to be riots like crazy. And I think it's all by design so that, nobody else follows them. But I think... one of the things that I've noticed in just my 3 years being online is that a small amount of people, that are loud and joyful and direct and aggressive can have a tremendous impact on what happens. You don't need a majority. You just need some people that are really committed. Yep. And it's infectious. And so, and I'm not trying to pat myself in the back because, I'm a small part of the small part. You know what I mean? Like we're a small group and I'm a small part of that small group, So like, it's not that, but the thing is, like, we were talking about the Fight Laugh Feast conference a few weeks ago and stuff. And it's just not a big group of people, but tremendous impact. Tremendous impact. And I think Big Eva is shaking in their boots. In fact, while we were at the conference, you remember when Lehman was subtweeting us and stuff like that. And these are the major players, right? They're subtweeting, "Oh, you Big Eva,"
Yeah.
They notice this stuff, and they're in for a world of hurt because there's lots of stuff coming that they're not a part of, and it's going to be interesting.
It is going to be interesting. So you've probably been following Big Eva more than I have, because I've kind of taken my eye off them for the last couple of weeks.
That's right.
But to me, from the little I have seen, they've kind of just accepted the inevitable. Joe Biden's going to be president, and kind of doing the middle ground, like, like, what do we deal with? Russell Moore's kind of retweeting things that are happening, not doing anything else. Have we missed anything that is worth noting in the last couple of weeks? That's basically it.
That's basically it. No. So there was one thing that caused a little bit of waves. The six heads of the six presidents of the six biggest Southern Baptist seminaries, or maybe the six only but Southern Baptist seminaries, all came out with a joint statement, and they reaffirmed their commitment to the Baptist faith and message. Very impressive. They also, all six of them, said that critical race theory is incompatible with the Baptist faith and message and with Christianity.
No way.
That's right.
Did they apologize to Tom Askell when they did that?
No, because he's a racist.
Oh,
right. So of course not.
So they're going to still talk in that way. They're just not going to call it that. Yeah,
of course. So yes, and I'm joking. They didn't actually say that literally, but yeah. But the thing is, like, all the while they're doing this, in the background, of course, they're still doing stuff that is completely in line with critical race theory. For example, I'm not sure that anyone's named him, but Tom Askell is a racist, according to many of these people. The statement on social justice is a racist statement as well. The George Floyd killing was obviously racist. Everybody knows that. And stuff like that. And of course, there's still critical race theorist teachers at Mueller Seminary. So, it's just a very interesting little caveat. I think they feel like they had to do something to maintain conservative credibility.
Yeah.
And so this is like the minimal thing that they could do. And I found it very encouraging, because they would never have made this statement had it not been for the small contingent of troublemakers on social media consistently bringing this up.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about the content creators like you and me. I'm talking about everyone that's on Twitter that consistently retweets them and zings them, consistently asks them questions, consistently creates hilarious, funny memes about them. That's who I'm talking about. Like, they hate social media because they have to face a barrage of pushback every single day. And so they had to put this statement out.
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting. I mean, you totally called it. I mean, that's just part of what the shift is to kind of doing that neutral thing, right?
That's right. That's right. Yeah. But yeah, so that's the big thing. And then of course you got some pushback to the statement. We had Jamar Tisby that wrote an article that said that the statement that critical race theory is incompatible with the Bible is actually simply a statement affirming whiteness as the most important thing. And then Beth Moore was saying how who even knows what critical race theory is? She's asked many people and nobody knows. Never mind the fact that last year they passed a resolution affirming how great critical race theory was as an analytical tool. But none of the people that wrote the resolution, apparently, she asks, apparently, I don't know.
Doesn't know what it is.
She doesn't know. Nobody knows what it is. So
but that really sounds like a great analytical tool. We don't really know what it is, but it's really good at what it does.
A lot of people were commenting on YouTube, on Facebook, that it kind of sounds like the Democrats, where it's like, we don't know what's in the bill, but you just pass it to find out what's in it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly right. Oh my gosh, it's terrible. So another thing that I saw, though, was the Capstone report came out with documents showing that George Soros was doing some investments with the ERLC. Was that this last couple of weeks?
That was a couple of weeks ago. I've heard of this many times, and the documents look pretty interesting to me. I have no idea how to forensically analyze that stuff, though. People ask me what I think about it, and I think I always say the same thing. I'm like, I mean, it makes perfect sense, but I don't know. I mean, I don't know how to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and nor do I. But I do have a conspiracy theory.
I'd love to
this.
hear it.
Yes,
I can't wait to hear it.
So for a long time, we've been making fun of the ERLC on this show, and I'm sure other people have as well, about how they're adamant about critiquing the persecution of the Muslims in China. And we see all of these comments and posts and articles, and I'm sure there's been some book club shows that Russell Moore's done about it. And I had an inside source talk about kind of this whole bigger picture thing, not just CR critical race theory, but also this whole big reset. That we can't even say the global reset's a conspiracy theory anymore, because I don't know if you saw this. Justin Trudeau admitted
I saw that.
Did you saw that? Okay, cool. Yeah. So the no longer conspiracy theory of this great reset. George Soros is part of it. The Communist Chinese Party is part of it. And a little birdie told me that George Soros isn't too happy that kind of China's taken the lead on all this stuff. And my conspiracy theory is part of that money that the Soros people gave the ERLC is to start being critical of China and to start giving them a bad name.
Yeah.
So that's just my little conspiracy theory from little facts that I've heard.
I like it. I like it. Well, I'll tell you what. I mean, you can always count on Russell Moore. Always. As long as it's the Muslims that have an issue. You could always count on Russell Moore to defend Muslims, to do whatever it is that Muslims do. I mean, listen, I don't want Muslims to die either. But the thing is, like, you know, if a Christian's getting persecuted, 50-50 Russell will get involved. If it's a Muslim, he's there. He gets out of bed. I mean, it doesn't matter what time of the day. You page him, and he'll be ready to go.
That's right. Yeah, and if it's a Christian thing, you might get a retweet of a court case or something, but that's all.
Oh yeah. You'll get if it's a Christian that can't open their church for some reason. There's an injunction or something. You may get a retweet after the case is settled. But if it's like a Muslim can't build a mosque, well, stop the presses. Everything stops, and you have to speak on it. You get on CNN and speak on it.
Right. And if you can't get on CNN, I'm going to do a live video to make sure I comment about it.
But it's amazing. Like, even people that agree with complete religious freedom, which I'm not one of those people. I don't think that every religion should have religious freedom to do whatever they want. I'm not one of those people. But even if you did have, they've noticed how quickly Russell jumps out of bed for issues that are involving Islam. Mm-hmm. It's weird. It's so weird. I got no theories as to why it is, but it's obviously that's his MO.
It's almost like he thinks he's getting supported by thousands of mosques around the country instead of thousands of SBC churches.
Oh, maybe he is, depending on where the dollars come from. Who knows? I don't know. Allegedly.
Yeah, you got to throw in the allegedly part of it.
This is for entertainment purposes only.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So, you know, it's sad. So every now and then I just kind of go through his Twitter feed to see if he's done anything significant yet. Still nothing.
Still nothing.
Still nothing. But someone was... Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. I won't forget this.
I was just going to say that someone was framing him in a quote and saying he's the lobbyist for the conservative Christians. And it's like, what world do we live in when the Democrat, what was he? The Democrat staffer is the conservative representative of Christianity. Yeah. Like, this is so backwards.
It's a sad state of affairs we're in, my friends.
Like, that's the conservative mouthpiece that we have.
Oh man. Boy. It's sad. Yeah, no, what I was going to say was, you know, some people would say, well, yeah, but he's doing things behind the scenes. It's not all about Twitter, Matt. And it's like, okay, I mean, so what is he doing behind the scenes? I mean, obviously he's traveling quite a bit. He goes on MSNBC every now and then. And I'm sure he's got some high-powered meetings with the office of the president-elect. I don't know. What is he doing?
Yeah, I'm sure he's met with Joe Biden once or twice already.
I'm sure he's had a few cookouts with John Podesta.
Allegedly. For entertainment purposes
only.
But my pushback to that is, but even if he was doing things secretively, his role is to be public.
That's right. That's exactly right.
So that's not an excuse whatsoever. I mean,
yeah, I listen. I used to buy into that stuff. Like, okay, well, you know, maybe they're doing something behind the scenes, but I've had enough of it, because what happens is, like, okay, I'm doing, like, people say this about Al Mueller all the time. You don't know what he's really doing. Okay, but I know what I can see. So even if he's really doing good stuff, he takes it all back with the stuff he does publicly, which is all terrible. So I'm not playing that game. I'm not going to weigh out what's good and what's bad. Like, everything I can see is bad.
Right.
You know what I mean?
What are the actions and the consequences of what he's allowed to happen? Like you said, the social or the critical race theory people in his seminaries, Russell Moore is his prodigal child, Matt Hall. Like, this is the good things that he's doing. No, I'm not buying it anymore. Cultural Dweeb said religious freedom is a myth and a blasphemy not based in scripture. And I wholeheartedly agree with that. Yeah, and in fact, like, this whole thing that I've been talking about in the beginning of the show of us fighting against this corruption and stuff, I mean, that is in and of itself the humanist religion, the statist religion.
That's right.
I mean, even Joe Biden just said that we're going to have to wear a mask for 100 days when he gets elected. Did you see that? In light of these vaccines that are supposed to be 98% effective to a virus that's 99% not going to kill you, we're still going to have to wear the religious getup and the garbs.
So hold on, let me just make sure. I don't know how to do. I'm not very good at math, but what I'm thinking is that if 99.97% of people survive COVID when they get it, and the masks are 98%, or the vaccine's 98% effective, that means that the amount of people who will contract COVID and then die will be, I mean, it'll be like a handful in the entire country.
Yeah, it's like 0.0001. If you or 0.0004, I think 98% times 98%. I think it's 0.0004 is the death rate.
But we definitely still have to wear the mask because Daddy said so. You know what I'm saying?
For 100 days.
I mean, while we're at it, why don't we just call him Daddy?
We might as well.
Joe Biden.
Yeah.
Daddy Joe.
It's insane, man. It's so insane. It's like pretty much a festival, really, for the religious, for their religion, right?
It's gross, man.
It's so gross. It's so gross.
Anyone have a count on the number of folks sick with the flu? No, who cares about that, Betty? Nobody cares about the flu. Yeah. I know it's more deadly for almost every category of people, but nobody cares about that.
No, in fact, I heard that it was cured. We've cured the flu because of our social distancing. That was an
Betty,
article
we've cured the flu.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've heard. It's totally cured. What I find amazing is like we got this, like we've been working like okay, there's a bunch of facts that I remember. Maybe I've just gone crazy in the last 6 months. But I remember hearing in the beginning of this, well, coronavirus is just it's very hard to make a vaccine. Very difficult. We've never been able to do it. And then I've heard, of course, that the flu vaccine, it's not that effective. Nope. It's very difficult to do a flu vaccine, but we had it. Coronavirus is even worse. And so so flu vaccines not that effective. Coronavirus vaccines more difficult to make. And yet in 6 months, we've turned around a vaccine that's 98% effective. and they expect you to just believe that and be like, well, I got to get it.
Yeah.
I got to get that vaccine.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. There's no way I'm getting that vaccine.
No.
Even if I was scared of coronavirus, I would not get that vaccine because obviously it's not as good as they say it is, and obviously it's probably not even real at all.
Yeah. But it's even more outrageous than what we're saying, because it's not just one company figured out how to do a vaccine that's 98% or 96%. It's all top high 98s, right? Or high 95%.
Like 95.
But it's multiple companies have magically figured out how to make a vaccine within 1 year that are all over 90% effective.
Yeah, in 1 year.
In one year.
But we were told this is very difficult. We can't expect a vaccine for 2 years.
Not going to happen. No.
Not going to happen. Coronavirus vaccines are notoriously difficult to make.
And it's like this whole new vaccine that's never been done before, like related to the RNA of your blood instead of the traditional. So
not gonna happen.
And
I'll tell you right now, I'd rather make out with someone that had coronavirus than get a coronavirus vaccine.
For sure.
Put it that way, right?
Yeah, I'd go to a coronavirus party or whatever those are. Like, didn't they do with the measles or the chicken pox?
Right. Yeah. We just all cough on each other's faces.
Right.
I'd rather do that than get the coronavirus vaccine.
Yeah. Not that I'm recommending doing it, but I would rather do that.
I'm not saying I'm going to go to a corona party. I'm just saying. That's what I say. Like people get mad at me for saying that it's not as bad as everyone said it was. And don't get it twisted. I don't want to get it. Like, I don't want to get sick. I know that
flu.
I know people. Right. That's what I always say too. It's like I don't want people to get sick and die, and I don't want people to get sick at all. But the thing is, I felt that way about the flu. Like, I don't know what you guys were doing, like making out with toilet bowls during the flu season. But during flu season, I would be careful about what I touch and what I put in my mouth, and I'd wash my hands and stuff. And if someone was coughing up a lung on the bus, because I used to ride the bus to work when I lived in New York. If someone was doing that, I'd be like, what's that flu, man? Get away from me, man.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
Common sense.
But what also is funny and just makes this thing all just such even more of a clown show is the data coming out from blood samples and the Red Cross. Did you hear about this? Where they were finding COVID in blood samples that were donated to the Red Cross in December. They were finding the antibodies.
Oh, I saw that.
And so from what also I've heard from some doctors is to get those antibodies, it takes your body like a while, 30 to 45 days to build those up. So I remember hearing about this in March that it could have been here in November.
Matt, we talked about this in March. I'm confident of this. I remember saying to you, Matt, I'm not a doctor, but I know for sure that this coronavirus was here way before March. In fact, I remember this. We got to find the video because maybe I'm just trying to make myself seem smart. I know for a fact I spoke with my wife about this, but maybe I spoke with this about.
Nope, we did. We've talked about it several times.
This was probably here in November.
Yep.
In fact, I think I had it in November. Remember saying that to somebody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know what I mean? I remember there was a period where me and my family were sick for like 4 weeks. And we were I remember almost being at the point of tears because my kids were just kept getting sick. And I remember thinking to myself, what are we doing wrong? Like, why are they still sick? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I remember when me and my wife, we were just like so frustrated. And I think we had coronavirus in November. So, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know. And we were even talking about it with the cross politic guys because who was it? David and Gabe, I think Gabe got it too, on the trip. They had something they've never had before, and they were all making fun of it like they had it. And it's like they probably did.
They probably really did.
There was thousands of us in this room. But you know what's even funnier, though, about this whole thing and why it's such a joke is how can we have it in November, maybe December for sure, right, January, February, and there was no panic or crisis of people dying from anything.
Right. That's exactly
nothing.
Right.
We were living the exact same way without the masks, without the distancing, without the closings, nothing. And we were all just fine. So what the hell are we doing?
It's ridiculous. The TV told us to be terrified, so we got terrified. Mm-hmm. That's all it is, man. I mean, even back during H1N1, I've always said that I've told you guys that I had that in New York. I lived in New York City, and I got the whatever flu. I don't know what they were calling it. Swine flu, whatever it was. And I was sick. But I remember that whole situation. Nobody was panicked. Nobody was fearful. Asians were wearing masks because that's what they always do in New York. Right. They wear masks all the time. Yeah. So like they were doing it, but nobody was doing anything different except for like, I don't want to get sick. So if I'm sick, I'm not going to work. I got it. And life went on. And I'm not saying I don't want to wish it on anybody because I know that old people are very susceptible to coronavirus. Flu is actually scarier because everybody's susceptible to it and dying from it if it so decides to take that turn. And it's a very sad thing. And we can all recognize that sickness has happened for the entire existence of humanity. This one's different, but only because we were told to be petrified.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the only difference, guys. And Matt, you're right. If this was here since November, December, we lived 4 months with this thing running rampant.
Yeah.
And nobody cared. Nobody cared.
It wasn't even, I remember people saying, it was seeming to be a pretty bad flu season, but there was nothing like, man, this flu is starting to really kill more people than normal. I mean, the elderly people are really starting to die and we don't know why. Why is this flu so, none of that stuff. It was just, we're getting more people having the flu. And then now the flu's disappeared to 98%. It dropped 98% year over year.
Right.
Like the science, the data would indicate that we have just been played a fool.
You guys, we all have to just start accepting the facts in front of us. I'm not a doctor, but I could see, even from what they were telling us, that what they were telling us was not real. And so we have to develop, and I'm talking to myself here because I know that I'm susceptible to this in different ways, where we don't act on what we're told if we know it's fake, because oftentimes, like we'll get into this happens to me. Tell me if this ever happens to you. You go to the grocery store and there's one line that's completely empty, and there's one line with a lot of people in it. And what reality tells you is, oh, cool, I'm gonna get that empty line. But what you think is like, well, there must be something wrong with that line because otherwise other people would be in that line. And so you get in the long line. But really, there's nothing wrong with that line. That guy's just waiting for customers. And so like you know that's reality, but you act against it anyway. Mm-hmm. We have to start cultivating that in us, like when we know something's true, we act on that. And so when the government tells you to shut down your business because it's too dangerous, and you know that reality says it's not too dangerous, plus I need to keep my store open to survive.
Right.
Keep your freaking store open.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I know. It's especially because like these things, well, one, I should just say this, is they've been lying to us about so many things in so many different contexts for so long. There's no reason for us to believe them anymore. I don't know if you were seeing or the people listening on our podcast or watching live were following the Project Veritas stuff. but he just broke that he's been on the conference calls for CNN for 2 months.
That was amazing.
So amazing. And I was just watching it live when he like popped in and announced himself to Zucker or whatever his name is. Oh my gosh. So great. But the things that are coming out of there is pure propaganda. And you listen to the videos of the local news compilations where it's 50 news organizations saying the exact same thing verbatim, and they like overlap them. They're lying to us. Propaganda, they have a narrative. Man. And we have to break free of that mold that you're talking about, because I think that's human nature. That's kind of like, oh, okay, so obviously the group knows better than I do. I must be missing something. But you don't. God has given you competence. God has given you all you need to live a life of godliness, which means how to manage your household, how to manage yourself, how to make the decisions that glorify God. And you're not supposed to look to other people for that information, first of all.
That's so right, man. No, you're so right. It's crazy. I think, there's definitely safety in numbers at times, and so going with the group sometimes can be helpful. But when it's so obviously upside down, when it's so obviously fake, it's not beneficial to buy into that. It's just not. And there's the gaslighting that happens right now is just so unbelievably intense. But the thing is, you can just live in reality. You can just go to the short line, and you know what? If there's something wrong with that line, the guy will tell you, "Hey, our machine's broken," or something like that. Yeah. And then you go into the other line, like operate in reality. That's it. That's all I can say. Operate in reality.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess I should clarify. I'm not saying that we don't need discipleship. We don't need community. We don't need to listen to people. That's what I'm saying. But we shouldn't be so petrified with fear to make our own independent decisions. Right. Where it's kind of like the doctors. Like you go to the doctors, they're consulting you and you make the decision. Like you are in a community and they're giving you feedback, but you're ultimately responsible to God for how you act. And so you're using them as information tools to help you and direct you and to better yourself, make good decisions. But it's flipped in a way where they're the authority of our lives, this group think. And therefore, I can't think outside of myself because there's some danger out there or there's something wrong. They know something I don't. And it becomes a paranoia instead of a freedom that God has given us to go and live the way that he wants us to. And so I think there's a balance.
There's totally a balance. Yeah, man. I think about like early on in the coronavirus, when you saw all the commercials that were like, it's heroic to stay home. It's the biggest, most heroic thing you can do. And I'm thinking to myself, that's not heroic at all. And so why are they telling me that it's heroic to stay home if I know that that's not heroic? I'm not saying that you shouldn't stay home. I'm just saying I know it's not heroic to stay home. There's nothing heroic about that. So why are they doing that? And so like when someone tells you something that's obviously fake, you got to understand like they have an agenda, and I don't know, you don't have to know what it is, but don't operate in their fantasy. Don't operate in their story, in other words. So when somebody tells you, well, the legislature is going to overturn the election, the will of the people, like we were talking about earlier, like, that's fake. Right. And so you don't have to know exactly why they're telling you that, but just do not accept that story in your own mind.
Right.
Understand that that's just a story.
Right. Absolutely. And because there's consequences with it. It's not just for the principle of it, but there's consequences for living in a false reality, and they're not good. And I was sharing some facts on our, pre-show prep, we call it, where I just send articles like, hey, yeah, we might talk about this. But it was where the 25% of people between 18 and 24 have had elevated suicide thoughts. 75% of mental behavior issues because they've been isolated, not living in community. And there were some other ones where suicide rates have gone up. I'm losing it. I sent it, I thought.
Yeah, you did.
But it was like more people have died from the results than COVID itself, from the preventative things than the COVID itself.
We predicted this. On this show, we predicted this. We knew we don't have to be, guys, you don't have to be experts in everything to know that stuff like this would happen. Of course, more people are going to die from what we've done than the actual virus itself. Because what we've done is actually really dangerous, messing with entire economies, entire segments of the economy. That's actually dangerous. Whereas, getting a cold that kills certain segment of people where we could easily protect just that segment of people. Like it just makes no sense.
And it's not hypothetical anymore because we know it was here in December. So December, January, and February, we were living fine with this.
And right. And listen, this is sad. Like, I don't want to be flippant about this. When your elderly grandparents, when they die, that's very sad. Okay. When my grandmother died, that was a sad situation. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, like, in December and January and February, we understood that old people get sick and die.
Yeah.
And it wasn't the sky was falling. It was sad in its own way, but it was sad in a natural way.
Right.
But then the TV guy said, but if they die of COVID, it's the end of the world.
You killed them.
You killed them if they die of COVID. Mm-hmm. And it's like, that's a lie. And I knew that was a lie then. And so I didn't know why they were telling me that lie, but I knew that I can't operate in that fantasy story.
Yeah.
And so I knew enough to know that that was a fantasy. And it turned out that the statistics, justified what I was saying. Mm-hmm. I didn't know at the time that the statistics would come out this way, but I knew that that was a lie.
Right.
And so it's still a lie, by the way, guys, when people start, because people are still pushing this thing where it's like, well, I hope you enjoyed your meal. You just killed everybody in the room. It's like, that's still a lie. I still don't operate in that reality. And I know that the statistics will bear that out.
Right. And I bring this up, not because I like being all super negative, but something that I've been really trying to push with my 2-year-old and my family as a whole, even myself, my wife, is that we have an obligation, especially as parents, to defend our kids from this.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
Like, I'm doing my best for my kids to grow up in a normal life, to have a normal 2-year-old experience where he's not going to be fearful that every single person has a disease that could kill him, that he's not wearing a mask where he goes, that he's not going to be scared of going up to someone and say hi. Because these suicidal tendencies and these effects and the spousal abuse and the depression is real. And as parents, we have an obligation not to bow down to the social pressures, especially when there's no science for it, but to protect them and to raise them to be independent, God-fearing men and women. And I just don't feel like a lot of us do that as Christians, where we just kind of give in. We don't want to make a scene. We don't want to fight the battles, but we must. Our kids are not living in a normal world, and it's having mental effects on them. And you're responsible for that as their parents. So start acting like it and stop trying to put them in this bubble. It's not healthy.
Good stuff, man.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Good pep talk. I like it.
I didn't mean to go on the rant.
A little bit of a rant, but it's necessary, man. It's necessary. Every parent needs to recognize that the messages that they send to their little kids are definitely received. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, yes, they're received. Even if you don't know it, even if they don't respond to them, the messages are always received. My son said the other day, it was so funny. So we've been playing Mario Kart a little bit these days. And the other day, I was looking at the wrong, because the screen gets divided into 4 when you're playing 4-player. And I was looking at the wrong screen, so I thought I was winning the entire time, but I was looking at the wrong screen. You're all crashing
into the side.
Right. And so I said to myself, man, I'm such a doofus. Yeah. All right. Fast forward like 2.5 weeks later, my son does that. My 5-year-old son. And he says, I'm such a doofus. And I'm like, he only heard me say that word one time in one particular context. That context comes back up and he's recalling it. He's like, and it was so funny. It was like, we all had a good laugh, but it's like, man, like, he's paying attention to literally everything that I say, even when I don't think he is.
Right. Yeah. And and it's not just with what we say, but it's what we do.
What
it's
we do,
how we
right.
interact.
Yeah.
It's the faithfulness that we have.
That's right.
I mean, I've been reading the Bible with my kids every morning. We go through the devotional. No, this is too reformed to be devotional. I am, what do you call it?
Catechism.
Catechizing my kids. That's what I'm doing. I don't remember the name every time, but I'm doing it.
It's reformed now.
I'm reformed now. But I missed it. I wasn't down there when I normally did. And my son was like, read Bible. Never said that before in his life. So like he even understands. I'm just saying I'm reading the Bible and I read the Bible. And a 2-year-old, starting to understand that that's what we do. And like, so that's what they're going to learn. It's like, oh, we put masks on and we don't talk to people. We don't get close to people because they're sick. That's what we do. And they're going to start growing up that way. They're developing their minds to think that way. It's going to be terrible. And so you guys have obligations to make sure that your kids aren't going to be raised to do that.
Good stuff, man.
All right, questions. We have a question. What y'all think of Mueller's article of him running for SBC president?
Did I read that article? Is that the same one about where he was railing against social media?
I didn't read the article either.
I don't know.
I don't want him to be Southern Baptist, the president. I think it'd be terrible, just like he's a terrible dean or whatever he is, a Southern. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I don't know. I honestly don't know if I read the same article. If it's that social media article, I keyed in on that social media stuff too much, so the rest of it is just gobbledygook to me.
Yes, that's what it is.
I thought it was a funny article because of how hard he came against social media. Here's what I'll say. I thought it was a funny article because of what he said about Twitter. And then I thought it was extremely elitist because he kind of puts this impression that, like, you know, he's always been involved in the right decision. As long as we're together, we can be involved in the right decision. And I just felt like that was super elitist. But maybe if there's something else that in particular that from that article, maybe I can recall it, but I don't know.
So he must not be on Twitter anymore, right? I mean, that's been a couple weeks. He got off?
Matt, come on.
No.
Did Governor Newsom stop going to restaurants with his buddies?
That's what this is.
It's all the same mentality.
It's the same thing. Oh, my gosh. You're so right. You're so right.
Does Gretchen Whitmer wear the mask anytime besides when she's on TV? Of course she doesn't.
Is that the Michigan governor? Yeah.
Gretchen, yeah.
Oh, man. She had this meme of, like, she had this face mask and this, like, black.
Yeah, unbelievable.
Like, if there was anyone, like, if you had to dress like you were going to take everyone's rights away, would you wear anything else?
She's a super villain. She's a
super
villain
for sure. I hope they do impeach her. All right, Sean says, AD, how do you feel about TEs? I don't know what that is. Catechizing children.
It's teaching elders. So he's talking about, like, how do you feel about the pastor catechizing children? It all depends on the context, I think. I mean, definitely not the teaching elder alone with the children. That would be totally inappropriate.
Yeah, we're not Catholic.
But, like,
too soon.
I think the show has to end right there. But I guess there's a place for it. I don't think so. If you mean, like, only the teaching elder catechizing the children, I don't believe in that. But I don't have a problem with it in the right context. You know, I think some churches will have like a children's church sort of, but it's like in with everybody else where the pastor will go over a catechism question in the service as part of like a question response type thing. I don't really have a problem with that. But I don't really know exactly what you mean. So it all depends.
Yeah, man. Coming from the evangelical side of things, with people having kids' church, now that I'm in the Reformed circles, I look back at that and I'm like, man, that's so weird.
It's a little weird, right?
Not having your kids with you.
Yeah, it's a little weird. I agree.
Yeah, it's really weird. But I would say this, though, in a way, like, the teaching elder is catechizing all of us as a family in some degree, right? We're going through, especially if you're in a liturgic service, like, that's catechizing, I would think. I'm considering it catechism to me. I'm going through a process, reading through the confession, those kinds of things.
Yeah. I think Sean's being like, I think he's saying, like, more in a formal way.
Oh,
like, it's a specific part. And they
like you have time, like 5 minutes to do some catechism stuff.
I think that's what he means. It all depends. I mean, it's possible. I do know pastors that do that. I don't have a problem with it. There's one Presbyterian church in South Carolina that I remember he did that specifically. And I didn't have a problem with that. I thought that was kind of cool, but it's definitely not only their job. So the parents should be catechizing their children as well.
Yeah, for sure. The spheres of authority apply. Parents are over their kids.
Edward Pragg. That was bad, guys. Yeah. But that was Matt. Matt was the one who said that. I just laughed about it.
It's been a couple weeks. I had to make up some ground. That's what it was. All right, guys. I think we're going to... Robert McCurley. I don't know who that is. All right. So thank you, everyone, for joining us live. The questions were great. Thank you for everyone coming back. I mean, 50 people watching after a week break. That's fantastic. Catch our show on podcasts on Friday on YouTube. And we'll talk to you next Thursday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. God bless.
God bless.